All right, I think we're good to go. So let's get started. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to hear our presentation for the Washington Bridge Project. I'm Sam Guglielmi, and I am your Business and Community Outreach Liaison for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. So we have a very informative slideshow to share with you tonight that I think you'll all enjoy and understand what we're doing out there. For this meeting, we're going to give you an overview of this project and some insight into why it needs to be addressed. So with that said, we're pretty excited to show you the design of the new traffic alignment and what it's going to look like when we finish this project. As an attendee of this webinar, you'll have the ability to send us your questions by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to send them in at any point during the presentation. We'll then start reading them out at the end after we finish our slideshow. Please be respectful when you send in your questions, and let's remember to keep them on the topic of this presentation. Please note that you will all be muted throughout the duration of this meeting. I'd also like to add that anyone that is called in tonight will not be able to submit questions during the presentation, but you can always send them in afterwards, send me an email afterwards rather, and I'll get to that later tonight. So your presenters tonight include myself, and accompanying me from RIDOT will include the project manager for this project, Anthony Pompey. From our design team representing VHB Design Consultants, we have Jeff Klein and Peter Pavo. And representing the joint venture construction teams of Barletta and Aetna Contractors is Brian Blackerby. I do want to just take a second and thank the many entities RIDOT has worked with over the years to make our infrastructure projects possible. With the help from our state leadership acquiring funding for these projects to be feasible, as well as the two abutting municipalities, the cities of Providence and East Providence, for their coordination throughout this entire process. So let's get down to business now. First, we'll start off by giving you a general rundown of the history and the limits that the entire project spans to. And then we'll give you some nice renderings of what the highway will look like with the new improvements when we finish, and also providing you with a timeline of each phase of construction. Additionally, we're also going to talk a little bit about how our adjacent Henderson Bridge project is moving along and give you a pretty cool look into how things are going now. Before we go tonight, I'll send you off with my contact info and some resources that'll help you stay up to date as this project moves along. And then we'll spend the rest of this meeting discussing the questions you've submitted to us tonight. Just to remind you, if there are any questions we're not able to get to tonight, those will be followed up in writing and be posted on our website in about 2 weeks or so. So I think I've talked enough here so far. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off, and let's kick this thing off by handing it over to the project manager, Anthony Pompey.
Great, thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. As Sam mentioned, we're going to start with a review of the general project location and background information. The I-195 Washington Bridge North Phase 2 project is located in and around the westbound half of the Interstate 195 corridor in Providence and East Providence. The eastern limit of the project is near the Broadway underpass in East Providence, and the project work extends approximately 1.5 miles to just beyond the South Main Street exit on the east side of Providence. Along this stretch, there are 3 primary locations where our project work will be focused. First, from east to west, the restriping of 195 West through East Providence to include 4 travel lanes and the construction of a new exit to Waterfront Drive. Second, the rehabilitation of the existing Washington Bridge North superstructure, which carries I-195 westbound traffic over the Seekonk River, as well as Valley Street, Waterfront Drive, Water Street, the East Bay Bike Path, and Gano Street. And the third main location of work for this project involves constructing a new on-ramp from Gano Street to I-195 West, which involves the realignment of the portion of Gano Street located under the bridge. Jeff will be getting into much more detail on each of these locations in just a few minutes. Also worth noting is the proximity of the project to the ongoing Henderson Bridge project, located approximately 1 mile to the north. We thought many of you would also have an interest in that project, so I'll be providing an update on the current construction progress and future design plans a little later in this presentation. As can be seen in this photo, the Washington Bridge as a whole is actually comprised of 3 distinct bridge structures. The narrowest bridge is home to the George Redmond Linear Park, which is part of the East Bay Bike Path that extends from the adjacent India Point Park to Independence Park in Bristol, and is the sole remaining piece of the original George Washington Bridge built in the 1920s. The rest of that original structure was removed and replaced in the early 2000s with the new modern structure shown in the center of this photo that currently carries I-195 eastbound traffic. The third structure is known as the Washington Bridge North and is the only structure of these three being worked on as part of this project. It was constructed as part of interstate expansions in the 1960s and currently carries around 100,000 vehicles per day. The structure was previously rehabilitated in the 1990s, as well as a partial rehabilitation focusing on the supports beneath the bridge that was completed in 2019. The planned rehabilitation work under this contract, primarily consisting of concrete deck repairs and deck joint replacements, is being designed to extend the useful service life of this bridge by at least 25 years. In 2020, RIDOT was successful in obtaining a competitive federal grant with a value of $25 million. These additional funds allowed us to design this project in a way that will not only fix the structural deficiencies of the bridge, but also address the chronic traffic congestion and associated safety issues in a way that otherwise would not have been possible. Through a competitive design build procurement process, the contract was awarded this past September. We are currently progressing our final design efforts for this project, while initial construction activities, including concrete deck repairs and median barrier replacements, have already begun this winter. During the life of this project, our project goals can be broken down into short-term goals realized during construction and long-term goals, which begin with the completion of the project and extend for its useful service life over the next several decades. During construction of this project, our primary goals are to maintain existing travel access for all types of users throughout the corridor as much as possible, reducing or eliminating potential public safety risks as a result of construction operations, and minimizing necessary detours and other temporary impacts to highway ramps and local city streets to the maximum extent possible. Upon completion of the project, or sooner when possible, our major goals include the reduction of traffic incidents by reducing chronic congestion through the corridor by eliminating significant weaving movements at the GANO Street off-ramp, improving air quality by reducing vehicle emissions via these same congestion improvements, improving the condition of the infrastructure to a state of good repair for years to come, and providing direct interstate access for potential new development along Waterfront Drive in East Providence. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Klein, the design manager for VHB, who's going to get into some of the more specific improvements we'll be making as part of this project. Jeff.
Thanks, Anthony. As Anthony mentioned, there's much more to this project than just bridge rehabilitation. So we're going to step through the project east to west, right to left on your screen by first walking through the I-195 mainline traffic improvements. And then we're going to discuss some highlights of how those traffic improvements are achieved. To get started, I'm going to turn the presentation for a moment over to Pete Pavo, our traffic lead, to discuss the mainline traffic improvements. Pete.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Pavo from VHB, and I am going to provide a brief overview of the traffic and safety benefits we expect from this project. It is no surprise that 195 West is congested during both the morning and, to a lesser extent, the afternoon commuter periods. This corridor is one of the most congested in the state. Based on pre-COVID traffic volume data, the travel time coming in from the Massachusetts state line ranges from 25 to 30 minutes. There are three major bottlenecks along this corridor that attribute to this congestion. First is a low-speed lane drop just past the Broadway exit. This forces vehicles to merge immediately. The next is the weaving that occurs between the Taunton Avenue and Veterans Memorial Parkway on-ramps and the Gano Street off-ramp. And the third area is at the Gano Street off-ramp, where again, the lane drop forces vehicles to merge. Note in the past year, we have seen travel times fluctuate from less than 10 minutes to over 30 minutes. This can be attributed to the changing travel patterns created from the pandemic. Because this project was planned prior to the pandemic, the travel time numbers we are using may not match today's conditions, but are expected to return over the next year. To help understand the safety concerns, we reviewed crash reports and trends from the past 5 years within the project area. We found that along the corridor in the area of the project, there are typically 400 crashes annually. Most of these crashes are rear ends that are due to congestion or side swipes from abrupt lane changes. To address these three bottlenecks to improve travel times and safety, the project will modify the lane use along the corridor. I will briefly step through each of the four areas of the improvements. Starting at the first existing bottleneck, the project will extend the fourth lane from the current drop point at Broadway to a new Waterfront Drive exit being constructed as part of this project. This allows for longer merging distance and also the ability for some vehicles with the destination to the east side to use the new Waterfront Drive ramp and cross the river using the Henderson Bridge. While we don't expect a major shift in traffic, any small amount of vehicles diverted this way will help the weaving conditions along 195. To eliminate the need for the Taunton Avenue and Veterans Memorial Parkway on-ramps to change lanes as soon as they enter the Washington Bridge, so not to get trapped at the GANO Street exit, the project will slightly widen and restripe the Washington Bridge just around the GANO Street exits to provide for a fifth continuous lane. Another minor striping improvement that will help traffic flow through the area is at the off-ramp to South Main Street, where we will restripe the lanes to an option lane, which will allow vehicles to continue through towards the I-95 split. With the improvements I just discussed at the current bottleneck locations, it is expected that the travel time between the Massachusetts state line and I-95 will be reduced over 40% compared to pre-COVID conditions. This equates to the average travel speed during the peak hour to increase from 34 to 52 miles an hour. We also expect approximately a 35% reduction in crashes that are caused from this congestion.
Thanks, Pete. Beginning on the East Providence side, as we mentioned earlier, there will be a new exit constructed from I-195 westbound to Waterfront Drive. That new exit is going to travel below the existing on-ramps from Taunton Ave and Veterans Memorial Parkway. That existing on-ramp is going to be carried by a new bridge, and the new ramp will travel below the bridge. The new bridge shown on the right in blue will require construction of a temporary on-ramp to keep this on-ramp open while bridge construction is ongoing. This phase of construction is going to begin this spring and ultimately is going to allow for the new off-ramp to Waterfront Drive to pass beneath the East Providence on-ramps, as the visualization shows on the bottom left. One of the major issues that is driving the need to rehabilitate the Washington Bridge is leakage through the existing bridge joints. To help reduce this risk of deterioration, roughly half of the bridge joints will be eliminated in a method similar to what's shown in this sample photo. Stopping the cause of deterioration at the source, along with repairing and strengthening the deteriorating concrete, will extend the life of the bridge another 25 years. As Pete mentioned earlier, the first few spans of Washington Bridge will be partially widened a few feet to provide the lane configuration improvements on I-195 westbound. No in-water work is required where we need to widen. GANO Street is shifted to align with India Street beneath I-195 under the third span of the bridge, eliminating today's sharp hairpin turn where GANO Street passes beneath the first span of the bridge. The new bikeway along the relocated section of GANO Street along the river provides a key missing link in the regional bike path network by connecting India Point Park, the East Bay Bike Path, the George Redmond Linear Park Bridge, and the Blackstone River Bikeway. This visualization looking west toward Providence depicts the realigned GANO Street and shared use path. Note the seamless transition from India Street to GANO Street following along the river, and the alignment of the proposed shared use path that separates path users from vehicle traffic. The vehicles turning onto the relocated GANO Street on-ramp to I-195 westbound do not need to cross over where path users will be accessing the path. This avoids conflicts at this location. Pedestrian and bike crossing improvements are also going to be provided at the existing intersection of GANO Street and the I-195 westbound off-ramp. Here's an approximate timeline of how we're advancing from our initial project kickoff in September of last year to substantial completion in fall of 2025. As you're probably aware, stage 1 is already in construction. In the next few slides, we'll walk through what's happening in each phase of construction in the coming years. Stage 1A included some prep work at the GANO Street exit ramp to open up a work zone to replace the left barrier on the bridge. This phase will be completed this spring, and the GANO Street exit will remain open other than periodic nighttime closures during this phase. We're also currently working in stage 1B. Just before the holidays, traffic was shifted to the north side of the bridge to open a work zone near the left median barrier. Within that work zone, the median approach barrier will be replaced. The bridge deck rehabilitation, superstructure repairs, and joint work will be ongoing. Later this year, the on-ramps from East Providence will be shifted onto the temporary ramp shown earlier to facilitate construction of the new off-ramp bridge. In stage 2, traffic is split on I-195. All lanes continue through, but the left lane will be expressed to Route 95 only. The bridge rehabilitation work described in the previous phase is repeated lane by lane across each stage of construction, as you see here and in the next slides. Traffic entering the highway is on the temporary on-ramp alignment from East Providence. It's important to note that the same number of lanes that cross the bridge today are maintained in all phases of construction. In stage 3 next year, another lane shift on Washington Bridge occurs. Also, construction of the relocated GANO Street and Bikeway shown beneath the bridge in yellow begins to take shape. Not shown in this image, the new Waterfront Drive Bridge opens during this phase. The importance of the shared use path can't be understated as it joins India Point Park, the East Bay Bike Path, and George Redmond Linear Park Bridge and the Blackstone River Bikeway beneath this span. The GANO Street exit will need to be closed for a short period of time during stage 4 to allow for barrier safety improvements and bridge deck and joint repairs. Access to the east side during the temporary closure of this off-ramp will be via a temporary detour using South Main Street's exit in Providence to India Street. Traffic also will be able to access via the newly constructed Waterfront Drive off-ramp and the Henderson Bridge during this phase. Stage 4 also includes the widening of Washington Bridge, relocation of the existing GANO Street bike and vehicular traffic onto the new alignment, and construction of the new on-ramp. The final stage 5 completes the remaining repairs on Washington Bridge. At this time, access to the GANO Street off-ramp is limited only to drivers coming from East Providence. This last slide here is just an overview of the final project improvements as a schematic visualization. This shows the new off-ramp to Waterfront Drive, the relocated GANO Street and on-ramp, and the rehabilitated and partially widened Washington Bridge. At this time, I'll turn the presentation back over to Anthony to provide some updates on the Henderson Bridge.
Great, thank you, Jeff. As we mentioned at the start of the presentation, due to the proximity of these two major projects, we thought this would be an ideal time to provide an update on our ongoing Henderson Bridge project. We provided an overview of the plans for this project when we met virtually in the spring of 2020. The full presentation is still available on the project website for anyone who is interested in reviewing any of the details. We officially issued the notice to proceed for construction to the successful bidder, Barletta Heavy Division, in October 2020. And after some preliminary construction activities, traffic was moved off of the northern half of the bridge structure in January of 21. Since that time, demolition of the existing structure and construction of the new abutments and piers have been underway, with the project on track for final completion in the summer of 2025. Knowing much of the work happening on this project is not visible to drivers as they cross the bridge, we wanted to share a few photos of the progress to date. The top left photo is an aerial image showing the current traffic setup with one lane in each direction on the southern half of the bridge. The downsizing of the new bridge actually allows us to construct the new bridge in its entirety within the footprint of the old northern half of the bridge. The next photo to the right shows the demolition of portions of the existing bridge piers. As can be seen towards the background of this photo, a little more than half of each existing pier was removed to make way for the new bridge, with temporary steel supports installed to keep traffic moving. The piers had to be cut into more manageable sections using large saws and then lifted out of the way with cranes. The existing granite-clad bases of each pier, which can be seen in the foreground of the photo, are being maintained for reuse in supporting the new bridge piers. The lower photos show the work happening on either end of the bridge, with the photo on the left showing piles being installed for the new abutment on the Providence side adjacent to East River Street, and the right photo showing construction of new retaining walls leading up to the new east abutment adjacent to the river on the East Providence side. By constructing this approach on fill rather than carrying it on a bridge structure like the existing bridge next to it, our new bridge is nearly 1,000 feet shorter than the old one. We also introduced some conceptual ideas for a potential phase 2 project at our meeting last year. I'm happy to say that the latest revision of the State Transportation Improvement Program included funding for this project, with timing intended to begin construction immediately following the currently ongoing Phase 1 project. We're anticipating to begin the design phase in early 2023 with the overall goals of providing significant extensions to the shared use path currently under construction, provide additional traffic calming and safety improvements, transit improvements throughout the corridor through coordination with RIPTA, while also reviewing options for aesthetic improvements, including a potential bridge overlook, additional decorative lighting, and significant landscaping enhancements. If interested, be on the lookout for more information and opportunities to comment on this project as we begin the design phase next year. And with that, we'll transition back to the Washington Bridge with Sam as he provides some of the resources available to gather additional information for the project. Sam.
All right, Anthony, thank you. So there are many things that you can do to stay involved with us here at RIDOT. Through our efforts to provide more transparency with the public, we've created a great resource that's available for you to see on our website that we call Project Pages. When we determine that a project will have a strong public interest, we create a special webpage for that project that gives you an overview of what is going to be happening. And we'd also like to give some history and a timeline of how long that project will take to be completed. This project actually already has its own project page that you can visit now and check out for yourself. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be posting all of your answers to your questions that you submitted to us tonight. That'll include the recording of this meeting so that you can come back and view any time to recap certain details, as well as a copy of the slideshow that we're showing you right now. Another cool feature that'll keep you up to date with this project is you can subscribe to our distribution list and receive weekly project updates. All you need to do is enter your email address at the bottom of the project page, which is shown on the screen here. Updates are sent out every Friday and include the latest details of what work is being done and what work will be upcoming. I'm also personally available by email if you ever want to contact someone with any questions. We'll put up my email address for you to see so that you have it whenever you need me. All right, so now we've reached the Q&A portion of tonight's presentation. I actually don't see any questions asked, so if you guys want to keep sending them in right now, we'll take a second and start reading them out loud. I'm actually going to ask all of our presenters to turn on their webcams now at this time. I'll start myself. Yeah, so any questions you guys might have, we can go back and take a look at any renderings you guys want to look at and just kind of talk about it. I'm not seeing anything yet though, so I guess we'll just give it another minute. I hope this means that there are no questions and that everybody understood the presentation, but I understand, you know, technical difficulties may happen.
Yeah, Jeff, maybe if you want to go back to the slide with a couple of the graphics just for another look for those of us still on.
That's a great shot.
Just a reminder, this is a design build project, so obviously we are in construction now, but we are still going through the design process. We're just approaching about 30% complete on design, so there's a lot of details still to be developed. But we thought this was a great conceptual shot of really the main features of what we'll be constructing out there over the next few years. A great before and after of Waterfront Drive exit will be opening in a couple of years or less.
So I actually still don't see any questions asked, so now's the time if you guys want. Unfortunately, we're not.
Yeah, certainly, there's no time limit on it now. You know, even once we're done, Sam's going to give his email address. Anyone who has questions, certainly send them along. You know, whether later today, tomorrow, next month, you know, next year, as the project progresses, get them over to them. We'll review it with the team and certainly get right back to you.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm starting to see questions come in. Thank you for asking them, for sending those in.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of questions here. And the first one was, has or will consideration be made in this design to eventually accommodate connection to Pawtucket Avenue? Anthony, would you like to share an answer on that?
So I'm thinking, obviously it wasn't specified in the question, but it seems to relate more to the Henderson Bridge concept. I hope I'm right there. I mean, obviously 195 has an exit at Pawtucket Avenue. I know Henderson Bridge. Yep, there you go. Henderson Phase 2. You can see the extension there. That's the light purple. Right now, certainly within our scope is to a reconstruction of that, expressway is really like a freeway that to nowhere, was originally going to be extended out a ways in either direction back when it was constructed in the 60s. Obviously, none of that happened. So we're going to reconstruct that expressway into more of a local parkway or boulevard type of roadway. Certainly out to North Broadway, where it's shown there, it'll have a regular traditional intersection. We'll be able to get rid of the bridge and the highway ramps. We are looking at concepts, even potentially extending it beyond North Broadway, though the next intersection would be Pawtucket Avenue. A lot of that's going to come down to some of our initial design, see what sort of environmental impacts, obviously the cost, and then what we have allowed in the TIP budget. But that's certainly an option we've heard from others, and we're going to be considering as we start the design process there.
I think there's a
Any
follow-up.
questions, Lou?
Yeah, I think there was a follow-up to that previous question, and it says, to clarify the Henderson Bridge project, the connection of Broadway and Pawtucket Avenue to limit significant disturbance at Broadway again.
So Henderson, I think that's what I had just kind of gone over. Yes, so the connection between North Broadway and Pawtucket Avenue, that is an option that's not in the scope at the moment, but obviously we're at 0% design at this point. So that it is certainly something we're looking at to see if it would be feasible.
Okay, next question, and I think this one will be for Pete from our VHB's traffic team. How was the estimated speed goal of 52 miles per hour established?
Yeah, no, I'll take that. So it really wasn't a goal. When we first design when we first look at concepts and see the best traffic improvements we can make on here, we work with with many factors. One, obviously, the bridge is how much can we get across the bridge. So cost constraints. We don't want to keep just adding lanes. We want to be cognizant of that. But so the design of what we could add to the bridge really limits that. So we could add just a little capacity through the unclogging of the bottlenecks. And once we design that, we put it into our traffic model with the traffic volumes, and it comes up, and that's what we anticipate for the speed that will come out of it. So it wasn't really a goal we set. It's what we feel the traffic will hit given the improvements that we have. We could have made it 55, 60 through here if we kept widening, but we're just going to, send people too fast and then into downtown Providence where they'll just get congested again. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, it wasn't really a goal. It just was the outcome of what we had, what the design allowed us to accomplish.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.
Next question here is, this person was wondering if there will be an on-ramp to I-95. I'm sorry, is that I-95 or 195, Jane? If you could just chime in on that. But going east from Gano, or will the Henderson Bridge be the way to connect without going to Wickeden?
Yes, I can. I guess I'll answer, and then if I say anything that's incorrect, I'll let Jeff or Pete jump in. But no, there's nothing there. The existing on-ramp is just to the west of Gano Street, India Street. So we didn't see another need for adding an on-ramp from Gano heading eastbound. As you kind of come around with that connection we're making between Gano and India, makes that a much smoother connection without having to go through like that 90-degree kind of curve down there. It'll get you right back over to India, and then the on-ramp is really right there. So that adding a second ramp wasn't really considered as part of the scope.
Thanks, Anthony. I don't think there was, but in this, was there a detail at the ramp bottom at Gano Street? in the presentation? I don't think those details have been developed yet, have they?
No, it hasn't been developed at the end of Gano Street, but essentially it's a similar connection to what's there today with some pedestrian improvements.
Yeah, there's no pedestrian signals there now, so that'll be a big
Yeah.
addition, putting in the pedestrian crossing signals. We're also adding a wrong-way driving deterrent system we used on many other ramps in the state. That can actually detect a vehicle if they ever tried entering from the wrong direction. It would send an alert to the office and the police to let them know that someone's entered the wrong way. But other than that, there's really no geometric changes to the intersection as part of this project. By shifting the on-ramp to the south, where it's shown here in this graphic, we're able to kind of keep that intersection at the off-ramp very similar to what it is today.
And just to clarify, there's only an off-ramp at that location. The new on-ramp will be adjacent to the
Correct.
westbound
Yep.
195 structure.
Correct.
I'm sure people have seen other concepts. We did have an original concept that did show the on-ramp getting located directly adjacent to the existing off-ramp, so the other side of the street from where it is today, and run parallel with that off-ramp to get back on. That did make that intersection much larger, and it would have caused some geometric changes there. So this design build team that we were awarded the project to with VHB has come up with this concept seen here, keeping that ramp really in the same location it is now, just extended a little farther out, closer to the river, which gives it a much safer grade coming up that ramp. If people are familiar with that ramp today, it's incredibly steep coming up with very little sight distance getting onto the highway. So by moving that ramp farther back towards the river, it allows a more traditional grade.
Thanks, Anthony. Will the ramp to Redmond Park just north of Narragansett Brewery be demolished? And if so, will it be replaced?
Ramp to the north. Jeff, I'm not sure exactly which one we're talking to here.
Narragansett Brewery, I thought was,
Just to the south of the bridge, right?
I thought that was, yeah. I'm not
So
clear.
there
on
is
where that
there is the
location
ramp just to the west, I guess, of the Redmond Bridge. I mean, I'm sorry, of the brewery. There's an on-ramp just to the west there on the other side of the hotel. That's outside of the limits here. We're certainly not touching that.
There's no changes beyond these.
I think a follow-up to that question, bikers and pedestrians have to cross traffic at the Gano Street off-ramp. Is there an opportunity to improve that intersection and or relocate the bike road under the Gano Street off-ramp where ramp R?
Yeah, I can take that partially anyways. We did look during our initial review of the design options at what we could do to basically take the bikeway that I don't know if you can see my mouse, that runs along the river here. If we could have it run along the outside of the ramp and come underneath the existing bridge, and there's just not enough space to be able to do that without impacting the river. So unfortunately, we have to maintain the alignment. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Pete or Anthony, on that.
Oh, because you tried to explore that first, Jeff, and it just wasn't feasible. We at least tried to upgrade the signal equipment to enhance the pedestrian crossings, right? So they'll have the latest pedestrian technology at the signal for crossings. So again, we wanted to try to avoid that. We agree with you. It's just it wasn't feasible, so we just upgraded that instead.
Thank you. Are we working with RIPTA to maintain efficient transportation to the public during this project?
I mean, we've certainly been in contact with them. They're well aware of the work we're doing. Specifically, there's not a lot of availability for upgrades or anything. A lot of times you might have a transportation lane or something like that. That's not really a feasible option on the bridge itself with such reduced capacity and everything. But we certainly keep them updated on the changes. Different roadways, different ramps would be closing and opening during construction. They're on our list for communications. But otherwise, maintaining, doing everything we can to keep all traffic flowing as well as possible. RIP to bus is obviously included in that.
Thank you. And the last question I see here, how is current project accounting for growth, if at all, in traffic? And what, if any, will the environmental impact of the materials? And are new materials, i.e. concrete mixtures, being explored?
So I can take the traffic portion of it. Yeah, so yes, this project is, we grew traffic out to the year 2055. Typically, for bridge projects, we do a 30-year lifespan, 30-year projection beyond the opening year. So 2025 was chosen as the opening year, 30 years, 2055. So we grew, we do a lot of research on census data and what East Providence and Providence have for potential growth in the area, and we have factor that all in. And when we do our traffic analysis, we always report out at the the build year, which is 2055. So I'm good on my question.
Mm-hmm. And Jeff, I want to jump in on some of the building materials we're using.
Yeah, on the building materials, I mean, for the most part, we're following RIDOT standard specs for concrete and those types of materials. We always try and explore things that will more efficiently work or more effectively last. But at this point, nothing's been identified that I'm aware of.
Is the FRP?
Sorry, I shouldn't say that. We are using FRP. I was thinking concrete itself. We are using fiber reinforced polymers to strengthen the existing beams. So that's definitely an advanced material. We're using link slabs at the bridge joints to provide some continuity and eliminate some leakage there. We're also doing the chloride extraction from the piers to help remove some of what drives the corrosion of the piers. So there's some chemical extraction that's happened there that happened in the past, and we're going to be retesting that and potentially redoing that if needed. But our hopes are that the previous extraction was effective. You're right. There probably are a few other things that I take for granted that we are doing that
Sure.
I don't think about as being that advanced, but that is advanced.
Great.
Okay, so that's all the questions I see so far. What do you think, guys? You want to touch on anything else before we move on, or unless anybody else has a last minute question before we move on? Well, I do want to say thank you guys, Lou, Anthony, Peter, Jeff, and Brian for answering those. Before we go on, I actually also see that East Providence Mayor Bob De Silva is on and thanked us for the update, but I wanted to thank him as well for his support with this and for jumping on and watching us. Jeff, do you want to scroll to the end? We're going to let you guys go in just 1 second. All right, so really quick before I let you go, I just wanted to quickly talk about RIDOT's Title VI policy as it relates to this project. So as you can see it on your screen, RIDOT affirms its full commitment with both Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and pledges that it does not and will not exclude from participation in, deny the benefits of, or otherwise subject to discrimination any persons on the grounds of race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, and sex from its programs or activities, whether or not such programs and activities are federally assisted. So RIDOT's Title VI non-discrimination policy can be obtained by utilizing the information you see on your screen. Just go to our website by visiting ridot.net and under the drop-down menu, Doing Business. We can be reached in many ways, so I encourage you to reach out by phone at 401-563-4256 or by email at dot.title5vi@dot.ri.gov or by mail at RI Department of Transportation, Office of Civil Rights, 2 Capitol Hill, Room 110, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903. And that'll do it for us tonight. I wanted to say thank you all for your time tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you want to stay in touch with me, feel free to take down my email address and reach out anytime. Also, as you can see on your screen, you can see the shortcut link to the project page so that you can stay up to date with the progress that'll be made over the next few years. Keep an eye out for those answers to your questions. Well, I guess we don't have to anymore because we answered all of them. But thank you all for coming, and go eat dinner if you haven't already, and have a good night. Thank you all.